All right, today we're going to be talking about the value of a college education. And if you know me in my personal life, this is a topic that I've been ranting about for years and years and years. So I'm really excited about this discussion. I've got a guest all the way from Marina Del Rey, California, although today he's sitting in an airport. So he was kind enough to join me. And he's also a professional TV host and producer, which is intimidating. I'm an unprofessional podcast host, so this will be this will be fun. His name's Alex Boylan, and also Alex won the 2002 season of The Amazing Race. In case he looks familiar, that might be where you recognize his face from. But he's also the host and executive producer of a show called The College Tour. He's a native of Boston, Massachusetts, a graduate of Jacksonville University, where he played soccer. He's traveled the world extensively. He's hosted multiple TV shows. He's a great storyteller, and I appreciate him taking the time to be with us today. So, Alex, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, David, for having me. Really, really good to see you.
Absolutely. So let's just get going. Let me see if I can do this right with you. This whole college thing is really near and dear to me. I've got a soon-to-be sophomore and freshman in college, so I'm going through this right now. But if you could just back up and just tell me what sparked the idea. And I guess you guys are around for 2 years right now. College Tour's 2 years this July, right? So coming up on 100 episodes or so?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, by the end of the year, we should be close to 100 episodes. It's insane. Yeah, so the whole idea sparked a few years ago. My niece, I live in Los Angeles. My niece lives in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, as middle America as it gets. And she was given one trip by her mom, my older sister, Andrea. And so she decided to come to Los Angeles. And so being the uncle, taking her around to the amazing institutions that we have in Southern California, it was a lot of fun. And during that trip, she looks over and she's like, Uncle Alex, I want to look at some schools in New York and Florida and Texas and all over the place. And I can still hear my sister, she was sitting there. She's like, what do you think we're made of money, Isabel? She's like, you're lucky we're in LA right now. If it wasn't for your uncle, we probably wouldn't be here. So that started the next phase of my journey with my niece, trying to figure out, where she should go. And that was online. So I was spending countless hours with her, trying to figure out her vibe and what's the right place. And if there's a lot of data points. I think as I went through that process, it is overwhelming for anyone, especially for a young person. Never mind a loved one, a parent, relative, whatever that's helping them on the side. Right. A lot of information. This is no knock to obviously higher education. They do a great job of telling their story. It's just a lot. Yeah. And, being a television, producer, the light bulb went off right then and there. I was like, higher education needs its own television series. I need to be able to sit back and kind of watch so I can learn about the location, the different majors, the campus type, the culture, a lot of the intangible things that you wouldn't get unless you were on location. Yep. And so that was where the whole idea started. And man, what a ride. Obviously, there was a big need in this market to tell stories. And the best part for the audience, every episode tells the story of a different college or university in America. But we tell that story in a very authentic way through the lens of real current students. You're getting real advice. These are real stories, real people. And I think it's just hopefully saving time, money, and just opening up young people's horizon of all the different, we're very blessed to be here in America. There are countless incredible institutions. And hopefully this show is helping, create better matches there.
Well, I think it's phenomenal. It's such an overwhelming time in life for kids. I think back to myself. I applied to 6 schools, looked at none of them, picked one, and somehow graduated. I went to school. I got a communication degree, not expecting to actually be in that field later on. It was just total luck. I wonder with you, you went to Jacksonville. I don't know whether you went there for soccer or you specifically went there for their international business program. But as I look at your career, I did some, I've watched some of your stuff. I've reviewed your LinkedIn profiles. It feels like your career trajectory from Jacksonville on has allowed you to do what you do today. It almost feels like it was all meant to be, the traveling, the TV, the international business study, the storytelling. It's like this perfect culmination of skill sets and experiences that allow this college tour to be possible.
As you get older in life and can look back, right, of like what happened at what stage to get you where you are today. There's a lot of different areas, and choosing Jackson University was one of the best decisions ever made. But I'm sure we're all the same age. It wasn't a lot of thought that went in there. I did want to play soccer, so that was a big thing. And there wasn't a lot of international business back then, right? And as a major. So those two things and I knew I wanted to go to school in the South. I grew up in Boston. I wanted to go to school in warmer weather. So those were a few of the variables that I thought of. But, once again, I chose international business out of a hat. I had no idea what international business is about, which is another amazing part of this show, I think, for young people to watch. And now we have this free class that they can take. But there are tons of majors. And what does that major mean? How am I going to apply that into a career? What does that actually look like? I had zero idea. And I mean, for me, I ended up, because I went to business school, I took a job as a market analyst, and I hated that job. I was not meant for that. But from a storytelling perspective, it is. There's a lot of well, first of all, my father was a pastor of the first independent congregational church in Georgetown, Massachusetts. And so I grew up with a storyteller as a dad. So it's kind of funny as I look back. So I think there was a piece there. Also, the travel piece, my dad, I used to travel a lot as a kid around the world as, it was almost like this missionary kid, be helping feed the poor in Izmir, Turkey. I wasn't going to Disney World and SeaWorld. So I had that. I think those two combinations. And there's another piece of this puzzle that was really important in my career steps. After winning the Amazing Race, Jacksonville is home to Pine Ridge Film and Television. This is, 20 plus years ago. Jerry Smith, who's my mentor to this day, he just happened to love Jacksonville, Florida, one of the most accomplished, travel producers out there. I was very fortunate to get under his wing. But if I didn't go to Jacksonville University, I never would have met that company. Yep. And that was a huge piece of the next phase after Amazing Race and me really falling in love with this business. Jerry was instrumental. I never would have gotten on camera, never would have learned the business if it wasn't for that. And I think because I was in LA, actually, after college, I was in LA, then got the opportunity with Jerry, I moved back to Jacksonville, and it was probably a good place for me to be in a mid-market, smaller town. LA is a tough place to try to figure out, and doing that at 22, it's challenging. So it was a good move for me to go back to Jacksonville and be in like this small insulated production company where I just got to concentrate and learn the craft.
Yeah, I wonder, how I listen to you talk, and I relate to so much of this. And as time goes by, as you get older and you start to experience life, hopefully we all start to connect the dots. But it's interesting to hear you describe it, because one of the things that I'd love to see schools just become embedded in is teaching people not only how to connect with other people and build networks, but how to maintain those networks. And just what you described, were you intentionally doing that from the beginning, or did you realize it over time that, hey, I can connect these dots. I know these people in Jacksonville and this guy, and there's so much there that I don't know that we're teaching that, or are we just realizing it later? What's your take on that?
It's a great question. I think about it a lot because I'm around so many college students now, and I try to, when I'm around them, give them the best advice I can. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things I say all the time. First of all, be brave to pick up the phone. I'm just a naturally curious person, and I naturally love people. I mean, I created and hosted Around the World for Free, where I had to live with strangers / locals around the world. So I naturally love that. Yeah, it's funny. I was just with there's a gentleman by the name of Frank Pace. He went to Jacksonville University probably 20 years before me. Big sitcom producer. So when I came out to LA as a young kid, he was my first phone call. It was fun because I was just actually with him on his podcast within the last month. And he was telling the story of what it was like from his perspective of me coming to LA. And I was this hyper excited kid, but I picked up the phone, called Frank Pace. And this is like, head of the class, Suddenly Susan, Murphy Brown, big sitcoms. I didn't think anything. I was just like, why not? I'll give him a call. Yeah. And I just gave him a call, and that began a relationship till now. 25 years, we've had a relationship. And so I think for the young people out there that are listening and or their parents are going to give this advice, it's like, start connecting. It's so important. I mean, I actually want to create, my past company, not to go down a sidebar here, but we had a company called Dream Job, and And in that, we help people kind of figure out their path to their dream job. And I think there's a way we want to try to incorporate this into the college tour, because it's so important, because there's so many young people just don't know how to connect these dots. And it's really learning, one of my things when I talk to young kids, it's like, while you're in college, create a great story. That's number one. I don't care what that story is. Do an internship abroad. Give back to your community. Have one awesome story. So when that door cracks open just a little bit,
Yep.
you have a cool story to tell, because when you're young, you're not supposed to have it all figured out. No one's hiring you because you're an expert. You're a college kid, right? They're hiring because they believe in you, they like you, and they want, they're gonna be giving you value, right?
Right.
And so I think it's just important. So it's like when you're in that room, be able to tell something. I think that helped me a lot, David. And I hope this helps answer the question. But I played soccer in Brazil. I moved there when I was 15 by myself. I lived in Germany. I did an internship in college. I was fortunate to win Amazing Race. I took a little sabbatical at one point and moved down to the islands in the Caribbean. I had great stories. And I swear that helped me more in life. Yep. Was because when I got in those rooms, especially at a young age, those are when I could start telling, oh, well, if he can go move to Germany by himself and go work over here and doing like sales and traveling around Europe, I think he can do whatever I need him to do. Does that make sense?
1,000%. 1,000%. You probably shook off the discomfort as a 15-year-old kid, the insecurity or the, I don't know if I fit in. You were forced into those situations your whole life. And so making that call was it was a no-brainer to you. You didn't even think about it.
David, can I step in here? You were so 100% right. And I say it all the time, like bravery. It's like, my nieces and nephews haven't taken my advice yet, but I've been telling them, do one internship abroad in high school, do one internship or whatever, study abroad in college. Do both of those things. You will overcome these weird fears. So by the time you're out, everything becomes like easier, because you've just had to adapt, and it's scary, and all those nerves, you'll get through them all. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I want to get into the college tour. I have a habit of going off on these tangents, but I train and develop all different kinds of professionals. And one of the things I do is I train and develop sales professionals, business development professionals. It's one component. It's amazing how difficult it is to teach an adult how to get comfortable making a phone call, or how to put themselves in front of somebody they don't know, and how they kind of lose who they are by trying to be something they're not. And I think to myself, wow, you were forced into not forced, but you're in other countries having to learn different cultures or languages. And you didn't even know, like, really at the time, how that was just grooming you for your future. Yeah. I wonder how connected are we, like, when it comes to our kids? I try to do this as a parent, learn from what you're experiencing now and build off of that. What are those specific connections? And anyway, I don't want to derail this. I don't want to derail this.
It's totally fine, David. I love it though, because we're so on the same page with this. It's like getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah. And being okay to hear the word no. Those are two things that people see I'm sure you see this all the time, but like, people see my successes, which is great. I've had a great ride. I'm so blessed as a human. No one sees like 99% of the things I try don't work. 99% of the things I go after, it does not work. And how many times Around the World for Free is a great example. That show, everyone in LA, everyone in Hollywood said no about that show. Right. Probably twice. Like, Alex, stop pitching us this show. It's a no. But eventually I got CBS to give me a little bit with the early show. And then that turned into, we sold that show to 100 countries around the world. And so it's just getting used to saying no and getting comfortable being uncomfortable are two great skills for the young people out there to learn.
One last boring story and I'll shut up. But one of my early jobs in the late 90s, I worked for a really, really small mortgage company, and they had an office in Florida, which was empty. There was nothing in the office. It just was there. And they wanted to get it going, and they hired a woman to run it, but she knew nothing about the business. So they said, hey, Dave, we go down and train her. And in the back of my head, I thought, oh yeah, I'll go move to, this will be great. But I had no money. They were paying me $7 an hour. I had nothing. And I packed my car. I drove to Florida thinking this is going to be awesome. And I felt like such a fraud because I had no money. I had no place to live. I had no furniture, nothing. And I was supposed to train her and get her excited about this company. But I never wanted her to know I only made $7 an hour. And the one thing I bought all my furniture used from Rent-A-Center. and I rented an apartment for $350 a month. And the only thing I had new was a mattress. I was like, I just need a new mattress. And I bought the mattress, and she drove me to the place, drove me home, but it was pouring rain out, middle of rush hour traffic, and the mattress blew off the roof. And car after car was driving over my brand new mattress. That's the only money I had was to pay for that. And I felt like I was such a fraud. I was so uncomfortable. I was living in a place with no money, responsible for training this woman to get excited about the company. And it actually worked. And she did great and all that. But at the time, I was so defeated and I couldn't show it. And I didn't want anyone to know it. But anyway, it just reminded me of just like the failures.
Yeah. And there's a lot of awesome. We're so similar, Dave. I say it a lot. It's like, don't be scared to move for a job, no matter how scary it is. Because especially nowadays, like, you don't know, I know we can work from wherever now, but it's the fact that you got in your car. Yeah. You did it. You took that first step, and there's a little bit of just faith out there of this feels right, or this is what I got to go do. And here's the thing, you figure it out.
You figure well, and that's what I think you're helping people do. I mean, especially some of these young kids, because when you and I went to college, the cost of college was exponentially lower. I mean, when you think about how much these tuitions have risen I think from 05 to 2015 or something, college tuition was up like 300%. I don't know what it is up since then, but it's high. Mm-hmm. So you came up with this thought process and this whole idea, which I think I've watched like 4 or 5 different videos. One was URI, which is where my wife went. And I think you do a really, really good job with it, but kind of walk me through first steps. Like, who's your target audience? Is it the student? Is it their parents? Both? And what is it that the college tour what should they be thinking about as they kind of navigate, go toward this offering?
Absolutely. So obviously our target market in general is young people. I think it starts earlier than when we crafted this. I was thinking about my niece who was 16 at the time, 16, 17. I think this conversation should start at 12. So I think it should start young, along with their parents or loved ones, relatives, what have you, because everyone's helping make, this young person typically, make this decision. And actually, first generation students are that demographic's really raising. So I think they don't have the guidance maybe where their parents had gone to school in the States and can kind of help them in that process. So the college tour in general is exactly that. It's like, we are the perfect gap. If you can't get to campus, because there's nothing like getting to campus, we're that perfect bridge between that. Or if you're only, like my niece, I'm only going to go on 1 trip or 2 trips, and I only can decide on a few things, or I can't go across the country, I'm only going to go local. This allows them to open that up. Once again, it's because we're grabbing real students and we're actually telling their real stories. That makes everything should be extremely relatable. And these episodes could be hours long. We don't, because the attention span of people, but they are. It's in a half-hour episode, you're going to get 10 great stories, real students, and we're working. We always say this is like a co-production with the college, because it's not like we as a production walk in and say, here's the story of University of Rhode Island. That's not it. I mean, we are working with that university from day one. It's 6 months to create an episode. We attack this like we attack any television show. Actually, in fact, it probably takes longer than a standard television show, to be honest. 2 months of pre-production goes into that, because we're starting so raw, and we're working with a university that maybe has great media teams, but doesn't know the navigation, or we got to get them into our format and our, just TV abilities. That's it's called sensibilities. So casting, figuring out what segments, and right. that's the beginning phases of the production, really, are those 2 variables. And sometimes you want to tell the story of this cool new medical center, but then the student applies, because it's all these episodes, it's open casting. And sometimes the university knows like some rock star students with great stories, but happens all the time. They're like, who is this student with this amazing story about their engineering and where they came from and where they're going? And so that's the, the process that goes through this 6-month process to tell this authentic story it's so exciting, just to be a part of.
What would you say? What would you say the big difference is between when you went to school, the whole process of it, and today? What have you learned as, wow, I didn't see that coming?
Well, I think universities it's a different experience. there's a couple shifts happening in general. I think college universities don't like to think of their students as customers in general. Okay, let's just call that in general. They don't like to consider of that. So but I think there's a shift starting to,
Yeah.
and I'll use my alma mater as an example.
Yep.
When I went to school, it's a great college. It was a great university. Loved it. Loved my experience there. Everything was amazing. I went back to film the episode, and it was a different university. I mean, this riverfront was like opened up into this awesome beach, the different programs, the facilities, the food, everything was like here, where the dorms I were in my freshman year, I don't know if students nowadays would stay in those types of dorms, right? It's a different era. So I would say every little piece, and that's probably why it's more expensive, is just elevated. And it was great. I was talking to President Koss, president of the university, and I was just like, it is amazing what you have done here in the last 10 years. You have transformed this university. And he's I'm not saying he's not an academic, very smart man. He was vice president of PepsiCo, but he's back at the university. And he goes, I just listened to the students. I literally said, what do you want, students? And I think that in my short, once again, I don't come from the education space. I come from the television space. But if I was looking at it, I think universities are looking at the students more of like, what do you want and what do you need? And so customization of programs where I can get my, bachelor's and master's in 5 years, and I can do this, or I want to mix and match. And so I'd say experiential education, meaning I'm touching things, hands-on, like learning, as well as the customization, and just in general, the colleges and universities listening. I don't want to knock Jackson University when I went to school there, because it was awesome.
Sure.
I don't think me as a student at that point in time thought I had a say in it, to be honest. Right. And then vice versa. And I think the generation that's going now do believe they have a say. Like, hey, this is going to cost me a lot of money. This is an investment. I want X, Y, or Z, as well as I just think they're just listening to each other in a different way, which is making honestly a better education experience. The amount of clubs and organizations and access, it's at a different level than when we went to school.
Yeah, it is. And in fact, I think about this process, and then I think about the life and work and companies and all that. And, the colleges, this whole day, we've done the up and down the East Coast tours, the New England tours, it's a pretty extensive process, and expensive, by the way, which is why I wish before I did all this, I should have just watched you, John, really. And I'm just wondering, like, from your perspective, I mean, you've had to figure a lot out. I've had to figure a lot out. So you get these kids coming out, and they're not always, there are not always open arms waiting for them. So I know in your experience, there are some of these schools who have done a good job connecting with, like, I think you said Boeing when we talked.
We were talking. I think it's really cool now, because the different people. Real quick, David, I think this might even help where we're going with this. We have a class now. Did I tell you about this class yet?
You mentioned it, yeah.
Okay, it's really cool because and we're building some more based on the success of this. There's so many data points. There's so much stuff out there where we broke the class down to 4 categories. Yeah. Location, because location matters, right? It's like, do you want to be close to home? Do you want to be far from home? Do you want 4 seasons in the Northeast? Do you want to be do you want to be in the mountains? Do you want to be on the beach? Like, what do you want from a location? And that also means like inside a city, close to a city, rural. It's like, there's so many different ways to look at the location. And then we break it down to campus type, the culture, and then majors. And I think that's helping. I think that's really helping, that like the first step in this process for these young people, because there are so many data points. If I can just be like, big picture, what am I looking for? I think that would have helped a lot in your journey with your young ones, right? To say, okay, forget it. You don't want to be downtown in a college, right? You don't want that experience. Okay. Some other students be like, yeah, I want to be right downtown in the action. It doesn't matter what you want. It's finding the right match for you.
Right. And so you're saying location, rural versus city. What about making the decision on what do I want to study? Where does that come into the process?
Absolutely. So it's actually the final chapter of this class is majors. And honestly, we just break down, we take all these segments from all these episodes, and whether it's aviation, engineering, medical, business, and we just break them all down. So if you're naturally have a field day going through those videos and getting to learn about what other students are doing. Because I think it's one of the most, we're building out just a majors class in and of itself because it's so popular. Because who knows, once again, I chose international business. I didn't know one thing about international business. Like my father was in international business. I didn't know anything about it. And I decided on that. So I think, hopefully these young students can say, oh man, because it's like, we're just getting 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds to talk to 15, 16-year-olds. We're bridging that gap. And so when you're 15, 16, you most likely don't have a clue. But if you're looking up and you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, I'm like that. I'm like that. So I love like taking things apart and putting them back together. And I could see myself, I love aviation. I might be able to get a job, be an engineer at Boeing.
Yeah.
And so, and it's cool. Yeah, it's really fun.
Well, it is. It's interesting because I didn't have a plan either, and I just ended up here. It turns out that I was able to leverage my past to create my present, but there was no plan. It just happened, and I started to connect the dots. I was watching an interview you did, and I cannot remember. I want to say Rampano. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong.
Ramapo?
Maybe that's what. Yeah.
New Jersey.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that the gentleman you were interviewing said something to the effect of the average college student today will have, or the average college grad will have 16 jobs in 5 different industries over the course of their career. Was when we came out, it was more than our parents. Our parents could go to one job and maybe stay in that job forever. With us, it's maybe 5. Yeah. But you're talking 16. So it's the norm is to switch. So what are you hearing as you're going through this process? Are the schools conditioning it's okay to switch? It's actually encouraged to switch. How does that come into play, if at all?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I don't know if that's come into play so much in the show, although I think about it a lot, because in some aspects we're getting more customized and more specific. Right? It's like, I want to be in gaming and this is what I love. This is where I'm going at. Now schools are having drone degrees and all kinds of stuff that we didn't have when we were around, when we were younger. However, when you look at and this is just kind of you and me talking, I'm not giving it, I don't want to call this advice out there, but when we look at some of these statistics where we are going to work for like 15, 16 different industries and all that, a liberal arts degree is not a bad thing to think about.
Right.
And I think in general, so I the more I think about that, what that major means, it's like, yeah, I'm learning how to think, and I'm learning, and I think you can apply that, because I remember when I just remember when I was going to college, it kind of made sense to me, but I weirdly feel like as things are evolving, that's a really good one, because welcome to the world. It's always changing, and as long as you know how to think and apply that, you can work in any industry.
Yeah. Plus, it doesn't pigeonhole you. There's a fear. I have a relative who went to school for accounting and then didn't like it. Went back to school for nutrition and didn't like it. Went back to school for education and then liked it. And then bang, there's the career. It's okay. It's okay. I think, but given, I think there's some pressure out there, given the costs, that I got to choose right. I got to choose the right school. I got to pick the right major. And that's my life, when the reality of life is rarely linear, and it's just so interesting. Like, for example, like when I went to school, I majored in communication, not communications. So I was so stupid. I think it was like 2-3 years in before I realized, I'm not going to be on TV. I thought when are we going to take those classes? No, it was all interpersonal, small group, psychology. And ironically, it serves me today. But at the time, I was too dumb to know that the school didn't offer what I thought it was going there for. It's just so ridiculous.
We're in the same boat. I get it.
So let me ask you this. This is not just about big universities. You told me that you do everything from tech schools to community colleges.
It's so important that there's thousands, right? We're looking at, we're around 3,500. School institutions across America, give or take. And that was our biggest thing starting off. We couldn't have this just like big state schools dominating or whatever specific demographic. So we have really worked hard to make sure that as we build this out and grow, it's as diversified as possible. I mean, we tell the story of, episode 1 was Fort Lewis College, Durango, Colorado, small school in the mountain town of Durango, really cool. to tech schools like Florida Tech was episode 2, small little school that was built to support NASA. So if you want to get into aerospace and all, be an astronaut, that's a great school to take a look at. And you can't compare either of those schools to Arizona State University or University of Connecticut or Rhode Island. They're just different. And we also have, we have small Christian schools like Asbury, small Christian school in Kentucky, Grand Canyon University, probably one of the bigger Christian schools with Division I sports, to Baylor's. Wow. So, everyone, we are different humans. And to me, it all goes back to that. It's a vibe. Yeah. There's nothing like, this decision, as we talked about before, it's like, this is a 40-year investment. So right. I think the financial piece, people to a certain degree need to take the 4 years out of it. They're like, okay, this is 40 years is really, and you still need to make smart, sound financial decisions based on that. But this is a 40-year investment. And, coming back around to why I think, and this is for me, location's a really interesting thing to think about. It's because I would say Jacksonville, Florida is attached to me for life. That city, that town, my friend, just because of the nature, it wasn't a huge city, mid-sized city, but it had enough infrastructure where it supports, like most, I'd say 50, 60% of my college friends still are not from Jacksonville, Florida, but still live in Jacksonville, Florida. Oh, wow. And so with that, that was, and I, once again, I don't say randomly, anyway, choosing that university was perfect for me. I love it, but I do think as people, start thinking, it's like, oh, cool. Like I want to be like at Texas Christian University or right outside of Dallas, because I love Dallas. And I was talking to my niece, because now she's going to school, the one who this whole thing was created around, she's going to Arizona State University, which is in Tempe and Phoenix. And I was telling her, I was like, I like it. I think it was for her. I go, it's a really good fit. She thinks she wants to come to LA afterwards. We'll see. You're not that far. Tempe's a nice, you're a little protected and insulated in this Tempe, but you have the benefit of Phoenix right around there. So my niece and I were having this conversation of what is she looking for? What does she want? And that location of a school along top with all the other, aspects that we're talking about.
I don't know if I'm going to ask this right, but I think you'll get where I'm going with it. I relocated. I've talked about this before. One of the other places I relocated was Virginia when my wife and I first got married, and we didn't have kids at the time. And so when we moved down there, I didn't go to stay. I went thinking we're out of here in 2 years. Now it turns out we did leave in 2 years, but it was because we started to have kids and needed support. But I went down there with the intention of leaving. And I remember talking to a real estate, one of my clients, her husband was in real estate. And he said, well, how long are you going to stay here? I said, oh, we're not going to stay long. Like immediately I'm in we're not staying long mindset. And he said, no matter how long you stay, why don't you just be here while you're here? Why don't you just like come to stay, even if you leave? And we ended up buying a house, making friends that we still communicate with today. And this is 20 years ago. And I'll never forget that, because I was really shortchanging myself by thinking this is temporary. I'm out of here. And then I listened to you talk and all the experiences you've had. And it seems to me like wherever you go, you're there to absorb it. Like Jacksonville, you absorbed it. It's still part of you. It's not temporary. And so like, as you think about where these careers are likely to go, these kids are going to bounce from job to job. Don't go to leave. Go and bring something to and take something from every one of these experiences. I really don't know what I'm saying right now.
Well, here's the thing. I totally get it, Dave. It's really that, like the old cliche. It's like it's hard. It's probably harder today than ever before. Try to live in the present. Here's the thing. We only have so much time on earth. And I know that like the older you get, the more you respect that and understand that. It's hard for a younger person to get that. But if there's anything, it's like, enjoy this ride. I always say, like on a super macro level, we are so blessed to be people with thoughts on this really cool planet with all these different cultures and religions and topographies and amazing. So wherever that journey takes you, whether it's just in your, a couple towns in your state, or if it takes you around the world, doesn't really matter. Embrace that. We need more of that. And so I think if everyone just takes pause, if you make that move it doesn't matter if it's 3 months or 3 years or 30 years, if you go in with this open mindset, this is where I am right now. I'm going to do the best of my abilities at this point in time. You're just going to have a better life. You know, because you're just going to embrace the people in a different way. If you're going in being like, oh, I'm going to get out of here, would you have made those close connections?
No.
You know, those friends. Exactly. And you take that away, that's half a life. You know,
Absolutely.
Let's have some fun on this ride.
Well, I think you got the perfect personality to do this, because it's not just this academic process. It's not just this intellectual process. There's an excitement to it, but you're bringing real life to it. Your real life comes through in these videos. I watched a handful of them, like, wow, you feel this way because it's who you are. And I think you're saying there's massive opportunity for anyone that wants to grab it, which wherever you pick is fine, you know, and we're going to open the doors for you. So I think it's awesome.
And you know what it is, Dave? It's like, we say this a lot internally. We feel like this is a love letter to not only higher education, but just to America itself. As we all know, this country in certain aspects is just becoming a little divided and divisive. And I love the college tour because we're authentic to every story. We tell everyone that. It's like, watch Carson Newman University, small Christian school in Tennessee. Then go watch Columbia College Chicago, which is a very progressive in downtown Chicago. Two completely different schools with different vibes, different cultures, different beliefs, all kinds of things. That's okay. Like, how boring this is what makes America awesome, is the fact that we have this type of diversity, you know? And so you have the ability, so few people on planet Earth live in a country where they can say, this is who I am, this is what I want, and this is what I'm looking for. And you can find it. And how cool is that? And then at the same time, we all should be learning about other different people's cultures and et cetera, et cetera. But so I think that's what makes this country special. It makes us really just blessed to be here.
Well, you started this thing by saying you're naturally curious, and that's what makes it special. And those are the skill sets we need to develop in everybody. If we just open and curious, we probably wouldn't have the problems we have. But instead, you're right. The divisiveness is unfortunate, and hopefully that passes. And with opportunities like the college tour out there, I think we can start reshaping it. What haven't I asked you, Alex? Any final word? Anything you want to say? How to access you? Where to go to see that?
Okay, yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, the best place is thecollegetour.com, because that's just a catch-all. As soon as episodes are done, they're released there first. We also have an app, so you can download that, as well as a streaming channel. And then of course you can find us on the Amazon Primes and Tubies and all about the world. But I would say the biggest thing we're really just trying to get out there. And this is really listening. We're in touch with about 60,000 college counselors that work inside high schools right now. And it was really them telling us, a lot of students' summer homework was to watch the college tour, which is really cool to hear. And as they were like, if there's any way for us to dig a little deeper into it, and that's why we created these classes. So everything in the college tour is free. No one ever has to pay anything for it. So I just want the audience to know that. But I think a good first step is taking the class, because it will just get your mind starting to think about how to think about your higher education journey.
Excellent. Alex Boylan, the college tour. I enjoyed the conversation. Loads of energy, man. Thank you very much.
Dave, same here. This is really fun. Anytime.
Okay.